Today I'll be working on something a little different. Recently a video popped up on YouTube discussing some of the lesser-known Xenos races in the 40k universe. The one that caught my eye was the Thyrrus, which are a squid-like alien species who see war as a performance. Reading from the 2005 book Xenology on the topic, the Thyrrus are perfectly adapted to survive in atmospheric, gravitational, and geographical extremes. Up top they have 4 weak, dexterous arms, and below a mass of strong tentacles that provide their transportation. I probably should have done a bit more research, but I kind of just took this photo that was in the video and started working on something. I picked up a junky $1 garlic masher. My plan is to use it kind of like one of those Play-Doh head guys where you squeeze down and the Play-Doh comes out. I mixed up some 2-part epoxy sculpt, which I thought would be soft enough to squeeze, and got to mashing. My first extrusion came up a little short, but I ended up mixing it back in with the rest of the epoxy sculpt to get some longer tentacles. And cut the masses of tentacles off with a knife. I let them dry for a few minutes so that they'd be a bit stiffer when I was working with them, and the extrusion left them with a slight texture that I chose to embrace. I really love these shaggy clumps of tentacles and the way that they mass together, kind of giving a sense that there's more of them than there actually are. I can't believe how well this worked, but I think I destroyed the garlic masher. I decided I had enough extruded tentacles for 2, and started to taper the ends with my wettened fingers. With these tentacles, it's pretty apparent why Thyrrus are also known as Squiddies by the Imperial Guard. Thyrrus can also change their color and surface texture at will, much like a real-world cuttlefish. For their carapaces, I turned to my bitbox and found these very unassuming Warhammer Fantasy horse heads. With a bit of snipping and cutting away the horsey details, I ended up with a segmented, curled back similar to a shrimp. I'd have to cover the front with more epoxy sculpt, but I was planning on doing that anyway. This is a variety of the bits that I was considering for this project. I forgot to film adding the arms, which were taken from Warhammer Fantasy skinks. I opted for less organic and more industrial-looking weaponry to differentiate them from the Tyranids. I think this might have been a Tau weapon at one point. This Chaos banner, and this other bit, turned into a somewhat abstract-looking piece of weaponry. I added some greebles and carved down the end of the other cannon and glued it directly to the carapace. For the heads, I considered a couple different pieces. I think this is from a Night Goblin spider, a Tyranid bit, and a Lizardman head, before finally settling on this old Eldar helmet flipped upside down. There's something very alien and kind of beakish about it. Here I've attached the Lizardman skink arms, as well as one holding some sort of blaster. I glued the head directly onto the epoxy sculpt I had used on the front of the carapace, and filled in that gap with a piece of armor. I covered the seam where the tentacles meet the carapace with a couple of pouches. I considered giving them these large crab-like eyes, but decided against it. But I thought it was too funny not to include in this video. I added some more armor plating, as well as these natural-looking pauldrons, to cover up the seams for the arms. And these two are really shaping up. I'm quite pleased with the process so far. So pleased, I actually started a third. I thought this one could be the prop master or leader of the small troop, so I gave it larger chaos arms as well as that upside-down Night Goblin head. I created another kind of abstract weapon out of some Lizardman clubs, a Dark Elder carapace, and a boxy bit that I found that might have been part of a vehicle. This is my small troop of Thyrrus. I've decided that it kind of represents 2 soliloquins as well as 1 prop master. I have no idea if these would actually be playable or anything. I did find a homebrew codex, but I just kind of wanted to explore the lesser-known Xenos races of the 40k universe. I found an absolutely massive list of different Xenos species from across the Warhammer universe that I'll post a link to in the video comments. In retrospect, I might have used larger bases. There wasn't really enough room to do much with, so I just kind of left them as they were. But I'm relatively pleased with the outcome. I'm not the greatest painter, so I neglected to film it. I mostly used some red contrast paint on all the skin, and then created this weird polka-dotted carapace, similar to a real-world Nautilus. I think in the future I might explore some of the other lesser-known Xenos races. There's some really interesting things in the lore that really haven't been fleshed out or explored. If there's interest, who knows, maybe this could become a recurring series. I had a lot of fun converting these, even though I don't think I have the skills to really back up my ambitions. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of these, and maybe suggest a couple other of the Xenos that I could work on in the future. Bye.